What's up guys, welcome back to LCS Garage. Today we're going to be doing some more maintenance on the Jeep, and that's going to be changing the brake pads. This car probably has around 45 to 50,000 miles. I don't think I've ever changed the pads on it. But it's not squeaking or anything like that. I just feel like it's time. It's a really simple process, so let's go see what you need to change your own brake pads. Alright, so first things first, I got some new pads from Hawk. These are the HPS pads. I got them for the front and the rear. I have Hawk on the Miata as well, but I honestly bought these because they're like 40% off right now. Go check out the code. It's like Spring 40 or something. And the tools that you'll need, I needed a breaker bar to just, help break loose my lug nuts. I always wear gloves, but other than that, you need a floor jack. And to take the assembly off, you will need a 13mm and a 15mm wrench. If you don't have a 15mm, honestly, like some pliers will do. And you can do one of two things for the caliper. You can either use a small pry bar or a C-clamp. I like to use a C-clamp. So let's go ahead and get started. Actually, before that too, it's always nice to clean up everything. So I have some brake clean ready. Again, some shop towels, but super simple. Alright, so before we get started, let's go ahead and break these lug nuts loose with our breaker bar. Now that they've been broken loose, we can jack the car up and take them off. It's always nice to have an impact, but if you don't have one, it's totally fine. You can just use a normal socket set. Nice. Okay, so once your tire is off, we're going to take off maybe two bolts. This is where your 13mm and your 15mm come into play. So as you can see here, I already have the socket on. It is this little guy right up top. So if you follow from the outside, obviously look at the top of the caliper, and you'll see this little rubber thing, and it's the first one here. There's one at the top, and there's one at the bottom. Honestly, you might not even need to get the one at the bottom, and I'll show you why. So let's go ahead and take this one off first. So the way this is gonna work is you're gonna take your 13, put it on here, righty tighty, lefty loosey, and you're gonna have to hold this one right here, if you can see my thumb, with the 15 to prevent it from rotating as well. So let's go ahead and get that done. All right, so we got this bolt out. We can let go of that. And now this should allow us to slide our caliper out. And there we go, just like that. And that exposes our brake pads. You can take the second one off to get more exposure, but I personally just don't think you need to. Now that we've got the caliper out of the way, let's just pop out our brake pads. You can just do it by hand. There's two clips, one clip on the top, one clip on the bottom, and they literally just slide out. You can always use a little pry bar to give it some coercion. All right, bottom one's out. Boom. So check out these pads. They're not looking too bad at all. They have plenty of thickness, but the rears I noticed were kind of bad, so I just figured I'd replace all 4 at once. So after you take out the pads and before you put in the new ones, I would like to push in basically, so this is the piston that's going to apply pressure to your brake pads that provides the clamping force, which allows you to stop. And this looks like it's already pushed in some more, but I would like to get it all the way to allow it to easily slide over the new pads, because typically when you have new pads, they're significantly thicker than your current worn out pads, so it might have a hard time sliding back over. So this is what I'll use. You can either use the pry bar while it's still attached. I like to use the C-clamp, and I'll show you that now. So this is the C-clamp. It's just a cheap Harbor Freight. I think it's like a 4-inch, and I'm going to, the side that moves, I'm going to put that in the middle right here, and then obviously clamp the other side. And then all you have to do is tighten her up. And as you tighten, you can see the piston sliding in, which is excellent. You don't have to undo your brake lines or anything like that, so there's no need for bleeding your brakes or anything like that. It's really simple. Just give this a couple twists, tighten her up, and it'll be ready. Okay, that's nice and tight. So you can undo it. Sweet. So now let's get those new pads on. All right, so here are the pads. Again, these are the Hawk HPS. You can see they're nice and thick and shiny and fancy. If your kit comes with these clips, these little metal clips right here and here, go ahead and replace them. This one didn't. They seem like they're in good shape, so I'm just gonna leave them alone. So you'll see with the pad, you have like the outside of the rotor and the inside of the rotor, and there is an orientation to them. So with the Jeep, the one with the little attached clip thing, that goes on the inside of the rotor, like so. And the other one obviously goes on this side. And you just take these little end pieces and you slide them right into the where the clips are. And they're actually in this orientation. Again, this side should be towards the rotor, and where the markings are here, where it says like HPS, that's gonna be the outside. So let's go ahead and throw these things on. Easy enough. So pads are in. Both pads are in. They're inside the clips. They seem pretty secure. So let's see if this floats over it. Butter. So all we have to do now is get our little bolt, attach our bolt back. Just hand tighten it first, make sure it's lined up nicely. And again, that's a 13 mil. Make sure it's on tighten. Again, righty tighty, lefty loosey. I didn't have much luck with the 15, so I'm just using pliers. Nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. All right, so again, right before you patch everything up, make sure your pads are nice and lined up. Front sides in the clip, so are the back sides. Everything's looking pretty sturdy. And you might notice that your rotor can move around pretty easily. From the factory, there are like little clips that they put on the lugs that hold it in place. It's honestly not necessary. If your car has them already and you go to take them off when you change your rotor, you don't necessarily have to replace them because the wheel will get torqued down and hold this in place. But it's looking pretty good. So let's go ahead, check everything, clean everything with some brake cleaner, and pop this wheel back on. Okay, this big old wheel is back on the lugs. So let's go ahead and put our lug nuts back on. Sweet, this is back on. Again, it doesn't need to be tightened right now. You tighten it when there's weight on it, which means I'm gonna drop the jack now and put some weight on this tire. And now that there's weight on this tire, now we can actually torque it to spec. I have a torque wrench. I think they want you to put it to around like 100 foot-pounds, you know, on these. So you do a star pattern, and then I always go around a second time just to double check. Let's go ahead and get to it. All right, guys, so as you guys saw, it was a piece of cake to put the new pads on this assembly. Maybe 7 minutes, 10 minutes tops, including taking off the wheel, so it's really, really easy. I'm gonna go ahead and repeat the same process on the other side and then meet you for the back. All right, the second side was already way quicker because, again, we knew how to do it on this side. So now let's go ahead and start on the rear. Same process while the car is on the ground loaded. Let's go ahead and break these lug nuts loose. And I'm gonna do it on both sides kind of simultaneously. Both sides are now loosened, so let's go ahead and jack this sucker up. I'm going to use the rear diff as a jacking point. That way it allows both wheels to go up simultaneously. Now that they're up in the air, let's go ahead and take these wheels off. All right, now that I got both wheels off, it's basically rinse and repeat. Again, we're gonna look at the caliper. Here, on the top, we have, you know, the top bolt right here. It's the same thing, it's a 13. And there's one at the bottom, but I'm just gonna try to only use the top one and see what happens. So let's go ahead and loosen that thing up. All right, so this one I'm gonna have to take off the second one. Okay, so we wiggled this thing off. So it's important not to let your caliper dangle from the brake line. I just can tuck it up here. And these pads, as I said before, these were kind of the sketchy ones. I'm not sure why the rears wore so much more than the fronts. But just take a look at these things. Let's get these suckers popped out. Like normally they just pop out with your hand, but this is gonna need some loving. Yeah, so as you can tell, that this is basically at the indicator. Really not much pad left, and it just looks crusty. There's no scoring on the rotor, luckily. They don't look amazing, but they're gonna be just fine. So the lateral one is out. Let's get this inside one. All right, now's a good opportunity while this is all open to just go ahead and clean everything. If you have a wire wheel, that's like excellent. Or if you just have brake cleaner, that's fine too. Okie dokie, so I just took some time and I just wire wheeled the area just to get off some of the surface rust, just all the crud that's been building up. I'll hit it with some brake cleaner in a minute. But right now we're gonna do the same thing that we did before. Take our C-clamp, put it in our piston, and basically compress this. I don't know if you can see it now, but this is pretty far out. So I want this to be more flush. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so you can see here, everything is all compressed in, and that will allow us the room to slide over the new thicker pads. So while I place this up here, let's take a look at our new pads. All right, awesome. So we slid the new pads in. Honestly, these required a little bit more effort than the front ones. Maybe just because the prior ones were so caked on. But again, follow the clips, top and bottom. You're not able to put the pads in a wrong orientation. They simply won't fit. So don't worry about having them backwards, upside down, all that stuff. It's only one orientation. The coarse side is towards the rotor, and the side with the lettering is on the outside, as you already know, and it just sandwiches in. So let's go ahead and pop the caliper back in. I already, as you saw, used that C-clamp to push the piston flat, so hopefully it slides over with no problem. All right, top one's in. Now the bottom one. Just give it a nice love tap here. Be right back. All right, so this is kind of a tight fit. So I got my soft hammer. So add it to your list of tools that you need. But everything is lined up, nothing is hitting. It's just a tight squeeze. This bolt is gonna be compressed in, and just give it some love taps. That looks good. Bolt is in. All right, so again, grab your 13 mil and your pliers or your 15 mil. Just tighten the sucker up and it should be good to go. Dang, look at us. We're basically mechanics. Again, you see how easy that was? It saved you a ton of money, and it basically only took about an hour. I mean, if you went really slow, 2 hours, and that's totally fine. It's you know, good to get your hands dirty. You can learn how to do it yourself, and I think that's super important. The last step of this process, remember, all your wheels are torqued to spec. Everything is back the way it should be. Your car's on the ground. Now you're gonna have to drive around and bed the brakes in. So there's different protocols that you can read online. Honestly, you don't have to go crazy with it, but I like to go up to speed, you know, like 20 miles an hour, hit the brakes hard, stop, and do that again a couple times. I'll do the same thing at 40 miles an hour and at 60 miles an hour just to get a nice, it's called, you know, basically bedding in. While you're doing this, you can obviously assess for any, you know, weird noises, any screeches, anything that may sound totally, you know, totally wrong. So luckily we don't have any of that stuff. The brakes feel great. A lot of good bite already. I've done a couple 20 to 0 pulls, 30 to 0 pulls. Now I'm gonna do 40. Sometimes you can find a big open parking lot and do this. It's actually raining now, so it's not even the best conditions, but you know, we're just gonna send it. Oh, Jesus Christ. You know, this Jeep is just so sketchy. Ooh, even triggered the ABS there. It's fun to do because I never slammed the brakes on this thing. But again, I'm rambling on now. I hope this video was educational. I hope that a first time, you know, I guess mechanic, I guess home mechanic, I hope this will help you guys. I myself basically have no idea what I'm doing. I watch a bunch of videos, I read a bunch of things online, and I wish there was just like really easy how-to tutorials to do the basic maintenance. I never grew up doing these things. So it was intimidating at first, but it really is so simple. And again, you can save a bunch of money and it doesn't take up that much time. So until the next one, I don't know what we're gonna do next to the Jeep, but probably more Miata content coming soon. Thanks.